Hey, Chuck. Sorry, I didn't see you arrive. Chuck, can you hear us? Greg, you can hear me though, right? Yeah, okay.
This is NBC Nightly News. Decision 2024.
I hear Lester Holt.
Yeah, we can hear him. I don't think he can hear us though. I'm going to chat him and tell him to turn up his volume.
No, that's right.
So I guess while we wait on him to do that, I'll give everybody a little bit of a guide for how our virtual committee meetings run in case this is your first time or maybe first time in a
I
long
can't hear
time.
you. Yes. Can you hear
I
me?
know, Chuck. Can you hear us now? Chuck, can you hear us now? All right. We'll come back to that. So as I was saying, if this is your first time, maybe first time in a long time, and need a refresher on how we run our virtual committee meetings, everyone is currently muted, and you're going to stay muted throughout the duration of the meeting. The only folks who will be unmuted at any given time are our co-chairs, Chuck and Craig, and any presenters as we move through the agenda. As we move through the agenda, if you would like to participate, you can raise your virtual hand by going to the React icon and pressing the raise hand button. It's not the wave or the thumbs up, as those will disappear. Only press the raise hand button once. If you press it a second time, your hand will go back down. If you're calling in from the phone, it is *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute whenever you're called on. Be on the lookout for a prompt asking you to confirm unmuting on your device whenever you hear your name called on by one of the co-chairs, Chuck or Craig. If you're having problems with Zoom, the chat is available for technical support to help with Zoom software problems. It is not to ask questions. Never see those chats. And finally, if you're using an older version of Zoom, we ask you to look for the participants section where you might find the raise hand feature there. And we actually encourage you not to raise your actual hand or wave at the screen. If you're having any problems, just chat me. I'm here for support. And with that, hopefully I can hand it over to Chuck and Craig and he can hear us.
Yes, I can hear.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Well, I want to welcome everyone to the November meeting of the Transportation Committee of Community Board 8. And I guess we're ready to go here. And my co-chair, Craig, later. Craig, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Nope, just a good evening to everyone.
Okay. First item on our agenda is a public on the irrevocable consent to construct, maintain, use steps and bench at 1014 Fifth Avenue, the Consulate General of Germany. And that's between 82nd and 83rd. Is there someone here to present this item?
Yeah, Sebastian and Anka. Sorry.
Okay.
Sebastian, you should be able to unmute it. Look for the prompt on your device.
Why don't we unmute both Anka and Sebastian?
Yeah.
Here it is. Oh, can you both unmute us?
Yeah, you're both unmuted.
Okay, that's great. All right, sorry, I came in a little late. I had issues signing in, but so I assume we're on, right? You want to hear from us now?
Yes, we'd like to hear from you. It's your application, right?
Good. So, yeah, thanks for inviting us to present this revocable consent application. My name is Sebastian Kempf. I'm a partner at Caro Architects together with Anke Roggenburg, who's also present here. We are the architect of record for the renovation of 1014 Fifth Avenue. The design architects are David Chipperfield Architects in London, and they have presented this project to the CB8 Landmarks Committee already in 2022. So I will guide you tonight through our application submitted to DOT, and I will add some slides that we had as part of the LPC public hearing that was held on June 27, 2023. So I guess I better share my screen so you can see some drawings. Does everyone see this?
Yes.
Great. So a quick recap on the project. 1014, as it is called, is a townhouse on Fifth Avenue across from the Metropolitan Museum. This picture is taken from the entry stair of the museum. And that's what you see when you come out of the Metropolitan. So it's very prominent. The building is owned by the Federal Republic of Germany since 1960 and has housed a German language and culture institute since. It became known as the Goethe House, New York. The Goethe Institute relocated in 2010 and left the building vacant. A new organization was founded in 2017 called 1014 Space for Ideas, and they will be using the building as a cultural forum with a residency program and a focus on transatlantic dialogue. More important than ever since today, I guess. So on the building, based on its foreign mission status being owned by a foreign state, the building was never within the jurisdiction of local authorities. Only for basic fire and life safety, they had arrangements with the FDNY, like an existing standpipe and a fire escape at the rear facade. So this alteration we're planning will now convert the building from a single family dwelling as per certificate of occupancy from 1928 into a public building, fully brought up to code, including fire safety and accessibility. Major alterations required are a second means of egress in form of a new interior staircase and a newly organized entrance configuration for accessibility. And I'm going to illustrate all this later in the drawings. I just wanted to give you some basic information on the project. So all this had to satisfy landmarks requirements, obviously, and the proposed design got approved in a public hearing on September 13th, 2022. During the approval process, a code-compliant upgrade of the existing cellar egress stair was later requested by DOB, resulting in the design that we show here today. This design got approved in another LPC hearing on June 27, 2023. Approvability of the design had been confirmed by DOT, which was a prerequisite to schedule the public hearing with landmarks. Eventually, the LPC approval and subsequent plan review resulted in the certificate of appropriateness issued August 29, 2024. And after this, the DOT opened the 30-day agency review, which is where we are right now. So here, this slide shows the sidewalk and front yard conditions on the adjacent blocks between 80th and 85th Street. It shows a nearly continuous line of green front yards varying between 10 and 15 feet encroachments into the 25-foot wide sidewalk that you see on Fifth Avenue typically. At the 1014 townhouse, here marked red in the center, the entire width of the building is paved and open, creating some small plaza condition and that designates and supports a building that wants to be public and open to the community. Zooming into our block and orienting the plan, we see that the wide 1014 entrance area sits between neighboring planter beds of 10'6" to the north and 14 feet to the south. This creates a generous setback area outside the pedestrian traffic flow on Fifth Avenue. So this is now entering the revocable consent drawing set, showing the location plan and photos of the existing front of the building. It also shows in red color the proposed egress stair from the cellar and the proposed limestone bench here, both located within the boundaries of the small public setback area in front of the building. Zooming into the existing ground floor plan, the condition of the open space setback from the pedestrian flow of Fifth Avenue becomes clear. The drawing also shows the condition of the existing egress stair from the cellar. And the stair, so this stair will be used as a second means of egress in the future, but it is too narrow and it's a winder stair, and hence the request by DOB to enlarge it and make it fully code compliant. The plan also shows the existing steps in the main entry to the building here, which needed to be solved to allow for accessibility within the building. So I'm showing this because this has a direct impact on the stair D, or the egress stair from the cellar, because we have to reconfigure the entire entry in order to allow wheelchair access. The proposed ground floor plan shown here shows the two elements subject to this revocable consent application: the enlarged entry stair from the cellar and the limestone bench next to the entry, next to the main entry door here. In red, we obviously show the portions of the elements that are outside the building property and within the sidewalk area. Therefore, part of the jurisdiction of DOT. So the enlarged egress stair now has the required width and no longer is a winder stair, but allows for a landing. To achieve this, we were actually utilizing the existing cellar window in the recessed portion of the facade and turned it into an opening for the stair to remain as compact as possible. So you don't see it in this plan, but you will see it on the cellar plan following soon. So there is an existing window on the cellar level that we utilize to create a door entryway into the building, all in order to keep this projection outside the building as compact as possible. So in order to blend the stair better into the facade, a limestone balustrade covers it towards Fifth Avenue here, matching the base of the building in height and material. This limestone wall encroaches 5 feet into the sidewalk. That's only half the dimension of the adjacent front yard and even less compared to the 14-foot deep front yard to the south. The limestone bench south of the main entry gates enhances the welcoming public character of the building entry. The proposed 2-level vestibule with elevator acts as a continuation of the sidewalk, inviting visitors into the building. So this plaza-like sidewalk is extended right into the building as an open area. So the interior of the building really starts at this entrance door. All this is technically exposed to the elements. So I'm just dropping one floor below because that's part of the application. So moving one level down, and we see the existing cellar plan with a non-compliant egress stair and the 2 vaults north and south. So this is the existing egress stair, only 30 inches wide, winding up as you come up. These are the existing walls. And here are the proposed modifications shown in red, again, outside the building, shown in red. And this shows the enlarged egress with the landing and in code compliant width, as well as the structural modifications that were needed to, create this depressed landing of the new staircase in the ceiling of the vault. So there's a new post here and 2 or 3 new beams to frame that new opening. So this is the existing boundary plan of the front of the building, which is part of the building application, but not much to say about this right now. More importantly, here are the elevations of the front facade. This is the existing condition on the right. To the left, the approved, LPC approved proposal containing the two elements from the revocable consent application. Here you can nicely see the limestone balustrade that covers up the entry to the staircase and sort of continuing as a continuation of the existing building base, existing facade. And in the sectional elevation, you'll see a cut or a section through the staircase going down with a depressed landing in the north vault. These are the building sections, two building sections on the left, or on the right here, the south vault looking north, and on the left, the north vault looking south, also showing the new staircase as it enters into the building. The red was also extended to the new sidewalk finish by request from DOT, even though this is not really part of the application, but this depicts a new granite paver proposed for this public plaza in front of the building. And the SCARA application, as it's called, it's the sidewalk, curb, and roadway application, has been filed with the DOB. And again, it's not really part of the revocable consent application discussed tonight. Here is an enlarged drawing plan section and elevation, again, of the new egress stair. You can see how the egress stair fits the existing opening on the ground floor in the building, and going down, it runs between two limestone cheek walls, as we call them, and on these cheek walls, coming out of the building, rests this limestone element, mimicking the base of the original Beaux-Arts limestone facade. Here you see the condition in section. Balustrade has a round cap, which is an element taken from the historic Beaux-Arts facade, which I can also show later if needed. Last drawing from the revocable consent application set is an enlarged version of the bench. It's resting on two limestone blocks. It's located south of the main entry. And yeah, this just describes it in materiality and geometry and dimension. So, so these were the revocable consent drawings that I showed, but I would also like to add some renderings we had shared with LPC that just illustrate the whole proposal in a much nicer way. So here you see a view, northwest view of the entry area with the new gate, which is not really part of what we discuss here tonight, but also with the revocable consent element, the new staircase into the cellar, and the bench. The bench originally was actually located on this side in an effort to just furnish this type of public plaza and really make this a much more inviting space for visitors and guests. But since we then had to add or bring out the egress stair into the sidewalk, that seemed too convoluted and too much. So that's why it was rotated over to the main entry on the south side. Here is another rendering showing this condition from the west, straight onto looking onto the building. You can see the idea of the sidewalk continuing inside the building in the two-level vestibule and the new metal gate, or the proposed metal gate. The idea is that it remains open all the time during opening hours, basically. It will only be closed at night. Yeah, this is the presentation for our revocable consent, and this is another image of the facade of 1014, including the proposed elements approved by LBC.
Thank you, Mr. King. In accordance with our usual practice, we'll see if anyone from the public wants to comment on this application. And I see Lo Vandervalk. Can we unmute Lo?
Yeah, Lo, you can unmute.
Okay. Yes, my name is Lo Vandervalk, representing Carnegie Hill Neighbors. We have been watching the various alterations of this plan due to the need for access to the basement or the cellar. And since the very beginning, the initial proposal was actually to have a bench whose back would be facing the sidewalk, but that bench came out quite far into the sidewalk, and Carnegie Hill Neighbors and others requested 1014 to set that back and to observe an open space, open sidewalk of at least 15 feet from the curb. And that now is being, that the spirit of that opening, which 1014 did agree to, is now being violated, if I can use such a harsh term. Don't mean it that way. But if you could turn to page 3 or 4 of the application that we all received, there you see the bench viewed from above. Yes. And now you see the bench in context with the park tree beds, vegetation beds in front of the buildings. And you'll notice that the one where the arrow is pointing is about 15 feet into the sidewalk. But if you go north, then you'll notice that the other park area is only 10 feet. And 10 feet happens to be true of 80%, I would say. That's our estimate, including Carnegie Hill area, of the typical planter beds in front of co-op apartment buildings. So our request is to move the bench, or to curtail the bench by 2.5 feet on the west, so that it would line up with a 10-foot extension of the planter area, because we anticipate that at some point the building will be willing to pull back that planter bed so that the wider Grand Boulevard sidewalk will be possible, because we now have only about 7 or 8 feet between the tree bed and the planter bed of the apartment building to the south, and we are going to approach the building with, eventually, if they renew that planter bed, to pull it back so that it's even with the one to the north. And so it would be nice to have the bench already conforming to that standard, which they did conform to in their original revised proposal, because they paid, I have the emails, they paid attention to our request, and they were very kind in doing so. So that is our request, because we think that the sidewalk, the boulevard sidewalk of Fifth Avenue, which today is not fully respected. You have a lot of graffiti, and there are pinch areas, and it's not the grand sidewalk that you would expect to be on the opposite side of the Metropolitan Museum. So, and also, if I may add, and take your time to add that when I think it was Mr. Spitzer presented a revised apartment building that would be demolished and rebuilt at the 79th Street area of this sidewalk that extends in front of the Metropolitan Museum. That apartment building, which before the changes would be made, has a driveway that goes to the entrance. When Mr. Spitzer applied with a new application, that driveway was taken away in respect of the sidewalk of Fifth Avenue. So we think we see movement respecting a wider sidewalk and a less infringed sidewalk. And so that is the spirit of our request. And in Carnegie Hill, we're very concerned about that. You will recall that that next to the Church of Heavenly Rest, there was an important individual building, 1083 Fifth Avenue, and this committee asked that the extension they were seeking into the sidewalk not be granted because it didn't match the apartment building, which had a much recessed extension, or the church, which had no extensions. So this is very much in the spirit of what's going on in the rest of Fifth Avenue. So I hope the committee will vote in favor of this suggestion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lo. Is there anyone else from the public that wants to comment on this? I don't see any. Do you, Will, see anybody?
I don't see anybody, but I'll just remind everybody, if you'd like to make a comment or ask a question, you can go to the React icon on your device and press the raise hand button.
We'll go now to Michelle Birnbaum. Can we meet Michelle?
Hi, thank you. Thanks for the presentation. My feeling about this is twofold. One, you said that the door to this building is going to be open all of the time when an exhibition is on or when the public is welcome. And so I submit that it would be more appropriate to move this bench inside. I'm not pleased with the bench being on the exterior of the building. That's public street space, and I don't see any need for it. And if you want to provide seating to people who are coming to your facility, it's just as appropriate inside if they need to have a seat. Let me ask you this question. Am I looking at an elevator? It's small. Am I looking at an elevator on the as you enter on the first floor to the left?
Yes, you are. That's correct.
Okay, so that elevator, does that take you to the basement as well as to the upper floors?
It takes you to the basement. It takes you to the cellar. There's no basement, but the floor below is the cellar. And it takes you to the cellar, and it takes you like 5 steps up to the actual ground floor level of the building, which is the main move to make this building ADA compliant and accessible.
Yes, but there will only be one egress for anyone who's disabled because they can't use the second egress.
But this is not against New York City code. I mean, this is there are refuge areas in the building where people can gather and then are assisted out of the building. That's how you usually work these things out in the building.
So is the staircase that you have constructed, which extends, did you say 5 feet into the public way? The stairwell?
Yes, yeah.
Is that 5 feet?
5 feet and half an inch.
Is that from the actual property line, or is that from an already existing incursion into the street?
No, there's no existing incursion into the street.
Okay, so
It's the
that's from the
property line. Yeah.
Okay, is that the minimal pitch and size of that staircase that you could have constructed?
Exactly. It is. And that's the reason why I did mention the ADA reconfiguration of the entry situation here, because this is a fairly complex construction working with existing building structure, especially facade structure. And this did not allow us to push this stair any further into the building because of head height issues. So it was a very complex study we did, and this was the best case scenario with the least intrusion into the sidewalk.
Okay, well, I wasn't in favor of the conversion, so I'm sort of sorry that all this has to happen. I know you need, now that it is a conversion, you need the second egress for codes, so there's nothing much I could do about that. However, I would like to see the bench moved inside. And I don't know whether or not the co-chairs will move this into a two-part resolution or not. So I will leave that to them. But for people who would like to vote separately on the egress and on the bench, I would suggest that. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I see another member of the public raise his hand, then Dylan Geronimo Kennedy. Can we unmute Dylan?
Hi, I just wanted to speak very quickly and ask a question about this bench, which is, in the public way. I understand that obviously the building would not want someone to, sit on the bench for an extended period of time, but is this a bench that, if I was walking, needed to wait for a friend for, say, 5 minutes, I'm assuming, like most benches outside of a building, I would be allowed to, like, very briefly sit there so long as I'm not monopolizing the space. Would the presenters be able to kind of address if this could be used for very brief, short stretches by the public, or if this would only be someone going to their event?
This is definitely meant to be for the public. I mean, this building tries to be, it's a community building, it's a public space. It tries to be as open to the public as it can be, and it tries to utilize, the given plaza-like condition it already has in front of the building, and sort of make this more livable and more well composed, and furnish it in a way with a bench that is definitely for everyone. And it's supposed to attract everyone to be curious and maybe step into the building. And by the way, to Michelle's point, there is already another bench here at the building. So it's it invites people in stages. And so you can rest here, then you can decide to come in, find another bench, and you're sitting in front of a window that allows you a view of the historical staircase that is part of the circulation in the building, and a really beautiful space. So it's it's a sequence of invitations that are composed here through these various benches, and yeah.
And I'm very grateful for a bench outside. Sometimes I just need to take a quick stop. Sometimes I need to sit down. Sometimes I need to, pull out a laptop, whatever, just to send off something quick. I very much appreciate having a bench that is there. I think we often don't have too much available public seating. And I think that this would definitely incline me to sit, wonder what the building was, maybe come back later when I had more time. I understand it's in the public way, but I like being able to sit in public, and more benches sounds good to me. I understand there might be some concerns about the exact size and exact placement, but I would definitely like to have one outside, because I'm much less inclined to walk into a building where I, don't really know anything yet. I would definitely benefit from an outside bench. Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan. Let me ask Mr. Kemp before we go to Sebastian. What about the suggestion made by Lo Vanderbilk of reducing basically the length of the bench, as he mentioned?
Yeah, we did talk about this, and we heard about the desire to, I don't know, improve Fifth Avenue or the Fifth Avenue sidewalk by reducing some of the properties' front yards. So we are aware of the issue, and our response really is that we would try to keep the bench in this shape as long as we can. And the moment there's really a successful process starting where this yard is pulled back to the standard 10 feet, we would pull the bench back. So we definitely are not proposing to have a bench poking into the traffic area of the sidewalk. So that's not our intention. But I mean, we have been told that this could be a long process, and we want to use the time that this 14-foot front yard is still there to have our bench in a size that responds to that width and seems the right proportion for that scenario to us. So it's a revocable consent. So all of this can be is fully reversible, and in case of this bench could be shortened at the time when it's needed. We don't see an issue with that.
Thank you. Okay, next, Sebastian, why don't we unmute Sebastian?
Thanks, Chuck. I'd like to move that we approve this application as originally presented and speak if seconded.
Is there a second? Is there a second to that? Anybody?
I'm not seeing one yet. So if somebody would
Wow.
thumbs up a second.
Well, there's no second, so I guess Laurie Boros are you second? What are you doing, Laurie?
Oh, Sharon Pope Marshall actually just thumbs up second.
Okay, so
I'm sorry. I'm just seconding
Okay.
Sebastian's
Okay.
motion.
I
Okay.
guess
I'll
it's
put my video on again. I'm sorry.
a delayed reaction here.
Yes.
So it's seconded. Go ahead, Sebastian.
Thank you. I just want to thank the presenters. I really appreciate two things about this proposal. The first is the introduction of the bench. It's great to have more seating for people in the neighborhood, especially in such a highly trafficked area right opposite the Met. Second thing, I know though it's not the immediate focus of our presentation tonight, making this building more accessible for people with mobility restrictions is excellent, and I love to see us doing that. It sounds like the presenters are willing to make changes to the bench length in the future, but looking on Street View, the garden next door that is sticking out into the streetway looks very established, and it sounds like there's no particular reason to believe that'll be changing anytime soon. So I think that making the most of the space that we have now with the bench length as it is proposed makes sense, and I'd love if we could make this happen in our neighborhood.
Any further comments on this? Okay, should we vote on this proposal? It's Rita Hopper. Do you want to comment? Rita, let's unmute Rita.
Just that we put a bench on 2nd Avenue near the park, and vagrants, homeless people are on the bench, but it has dividers, so it makes it hard for somebody to sleep on the bench lengthwise. Will this bench have, dividers so that somebody cannot sleep on the bench and take up residence on the bench?
You want to answer that, Sebastian? I mean, I can think of an
Yes.
answer right
Yes,
away.
sure. Well, I mean, right now, as we propose this, it's not intended to have dividers, but we will work with the conditions as they develop. And I mean, we consider this outside space here fairly well under surveillance. There are cameras there's a very active building that will take care of the building and how it's being used. And if none of this works and there are really people starting to sleep and spend the night on the bench, we will find methods to avoid that.
Thank you.
And
Yeah,
dividing the length of the bench is probably one of the most successful and easiest ways of doing it.
and this bench, Reed, I know the benches you're talking about, but this is a different situation. This is right by the building. And as Mr. Kemp said, that we're able to see things easily.
Yeah.
All right, before we vote, Michelle, do you want to say something else?
Yeah, I just wanted to offer the information that since it's right across from the Met, there's an awful lot of seating there for the public. That's all.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think we're ready to vote. Do you want to take attendance, Craig?
Yes. Okay, so if there are any board members that don't hear the names, please speak up. We have myself, Chuck, John McClement, Lori, Paul, Sebastian, Sharon, Stephanie, and TJ. And Rita, sorry, I missed Rita.
Michelle, did you
And
manage?
Michelle, yeah. I wrote this down earlier and must have missed a few.
Okay, that's okay. We have everybody now. So if you're in favor of this, you don't have to do anything, but if you want to vote no or abstain or not voting for cause, raise your hand. Michelle? Okay. Michelle?
No.
Is there anyone else who wants to vote, not vote yes? Okay. All right, I think we have that. Yeah. Thank you for the presentation. Now, the number 2 item on the agenda, and I'll ask Will in a minute whether anyone's, or maybe it's addressing the double parking situation by Fox 5 in New York vehicles on East 67th Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenues and related impacts to the M66 bus operations. This has been a long-standing situation here. We've addressed this over the years, and we've gotten commitments from the station that they will take steps to make sure that things you don't have this kind of situation. But we've had a lot of recent complaints about it from neighbors, and that's why it's on the agenda. As we wrote a letter to Fox 5 inviting someone from management to come, and Will, did you ever get a response, or is anyone here from Fox 5? Do we know?
I don't know if anybody is here from Fox 5, but if you are, please raise your virtual hand. No, I didn't get a written email or phone call type of response from Fox 5 about our letter.
Well, we may have to do what we've done in the past, is send them a signal, and that's by taking away some of the parking privileges that are in front there, unless they're prepared to show up and talk about what they can do to improve the situation, because there is a lot of truck, not just truck, but a lot of double parking and issues, and there's garages there and everything, and it's been an issue. And it's been an issue in the past, and it's obviously come up again. So what I think we ought to do, and I'll leave it to the committee, obviously, but is that we ought to say, what right now the parking situation, the whole length of their building, it's basically no parking except for their vehicles, and that was so they could get their camera trucks and stuff like that there, and that's what it's supposed to be used for. But as these things go, it's a lot of people park there, and who just stay for a long time. It's not like they're just pulling in and pulling out. And even though it's not too far from the police station, there's not much in the way of enforcement. And so that's an issue. And we might want to take away some of that the parking privilege that they have now, since they're not and I think as a practical matter, you probably use less of those trucks for anyway today. But we don't have anyone here from Fox, so they can't give us the situation, but we posted it, and I don't see any reason why we couldn't take action if we're so entitled. Michelle.
Yeah, how many of these spots, it's no parking, right? Is it the whole width of the building?
It's the
It's
whole
New York, it's New York Press license plates only.
New York Press license plate only.
For how many spots roughly?
Oh, gosh, it must be, it's a very.
It's the whole block.
It's not the whole block, but it's pretty close to the whole block.
It starts in front of 201 East 67th Street, so it goes beyond the building on the west side. And then it goes, I'm just looking right now where it ends. Still looking for the sign. It looks like it ends not a couple of spaces before the end of the building.
All right, what I think we ought to take as Chuck suggests, the same tactic that we took with Fairway. The fact that these people won't come in to engage with us, and the fact that we get repeated complaints about this, which has been going on for a very, very, very long time, I would propose something pretty dramatic, saying, because you have not responded to the community board, which would be willing to work with you, we are proposing a no standing zone on all of your spots. I personally would like to see the press have parking spots. I'm not opposed to that. I would like them to have it. But if they're abusing everybody else, causing hardships for everybody else in the community, and if they're not willing to engage with us, then we sort of have to have a carrot and a stick. And the only thing we have is the threat of changing the regulations. And the only way that threat is worthwhile is if you inform them that you plan to do that if they don't come and meet with us. So that would be my suggestion. Can be in the form of a letter, doesn't have to be a resolution, I guess.
Well, Michelle, let me just tell you that the letter that we sent, at least that's the one I drafted, said if they are not responsive, we're going to take action. We'll take some action to affect.
Okay.
So I think there's no reason why we couldn't. And what I wouldn't do the whole thing. If I would just say maybe half the, just firing a shot, half the spaces essentially.
Well, no standing is the threatening one, because
right.
That's the one that has very little leeway. I don't know what half represents. I don't know how disturbed they would be about half, since they tend to ignore it anyway. That's why I was sort of asking how many spots. If it's 6 spots, I wouldn't say half. In this case, the threat would be what we're asking for to bring them in the hope that that's the thing we're holding over them. If you're not going to be responsible to the community, if you're not going to be a good neighbor, then there's no reason why you should have an opportunity to abuse that block, their residents on that block. Okay. So I would say the whole thing, that's the threat. Let's see if you get a response from them. And if you don't, Colleen is here. Is that something that DOT could and would do?
And just so we have a reference, it is approximately a 200-foot long New York Press area. That is about
that's
about 10 spaces.
That's really a substantial amount of space that they should really be able to live within that space. Yeah, that would be my suggestion. I wouldn't make it milquetoast.
Colleen.
Hey, it's Colleen from DOT. What I can do, I can confirm how many spaces we have allotted to Fox. I know we do give, press, parking spaces, but it's for, not for private vehicles. It's for their, news vehicles and so forth and so forth. Let me confirm how many spaces we gave them, and I'll get back to Will in the morning.
Okay.
All right, but we can still decide tonight as to whether or not we want to take that tact.
Yes.
Do you
know
think it needs a resolution or can it, we're talking about a letter, really?
I think a resolution, actually, frankly, I would like to see that. But you know, it's, your motion, so,
Well, I spoke to it, so I can't make it.
okay,
I
well,
just want to be careful though. There are, if you're looking at street views and stuff, obviously they blur out the license plates, but you could have a private vehicle that with New York Press license plates as well. So
yes.
I just want to make sure that we're not only talking about the vans. And
No, not the van. If you did no standing, that would affect everything.
Right. And they should be monitoring it. That's their
Well,
responsibility.
they're supposed to. But we have some members of the public I see who want to comment, so I'd like to, why don't we do that? Ralph Nucerino has got his hand up, so why don't we unmute Ralph?
Okay, thank you. I have an apartment at 220 East 67th Street, which is right across the street from the area that we're talking about. And I've owned it for about 14 months. And at no point in time during the 14 months, whenever I've been driven into the city and I had to take luggage out of a car or packages out of a car, I've never been able to pull up in front of the building because there have been cars double parked there regardless of the time of the day, weekend, no matter what. So I'm just, reiterating here the fact that it's a serious problem for the building entrance right at 220 East 67. It just blocks everything. And many times, I've recently had quite a bit of luggage and packaging that I had to have my driver pull behind the double parked vehicles and carry about 10 bags across the street in the middle of all of the traffic. So this is a very serious situation. And I think we should take the most extreme position possible on it so that there's no double parking allowed whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see someone who identified merely as AK. If you could identify yourself for the record, unmute AK. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Alex Killian, and I also reside at 220 East 67th Street. I am grateful to see at least 7 other people from my building who are on this call. When I was at the meeting, the community board meeting in July, you had also mentioned that it wasn't only Fox's illegal parking, double parking, but also the issue with the police not enforcing this double parking. I believe there were also complaints by the Department of Transportation Board for the buses that were unable to get down the street and weren't able to pick up passengers at the bus stops. So I think it's also, I believe that you should also try to address it with the police department to enforce the illegal parking.
Yes, I know that's been an issue also, you're right. And we have talked to them, but they don't always listen. But we'll talk to them again.
I was also going to suggest that it's been a little while since we've had them present, and we may want to invite them again. And probably we want to ideally see if we can even have traffic enforcement come on a semi-annual basis at least, or certainly at least annually, just to allow the community to be able to bring up specific issues that that they're facing, such as this.
No, I think you're right. We used to actually have them come in. Let's see, I see, there Rena Lips from the public also. Can we unmute? Go ahead.
Hi, I also live at 220 East 67th Street, and yeah, the cars double parked. If they were just parked, that wouldn't be an issue, but it's the double parking, and they could be double parked the entire length of the space that they're allotted. I have no idea if those are press vehicles. They're definitely not vans. If you ever have to get anything delivered, our delivery trucks can never stop to deliver anything. And for me personally, I had knee surgery in September, and I need access to cars, Ubers, taxis to take me back and forth to physical therapy. And they can't even stop in front of the building to pick me up because of the double parking. And then they block traffic behind. They block traffic because they're stopping in front of the building. And so this is for me personally, it's horrible because I have health reasons. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who has this issue. And I've never seen a cop give tickets at all. And this can't be legal. So yeah, I'm so happy that this is being addressed, and I hope that we get the police involved in this.
Thank you. I see another member of the public, Douglas Levine. Can we unmute Douglas? Go ahead. Oh, you have to.
Yes, thank you. Hi, good evening. Thank you for taking up this issue. I also live at 220. Just wanted to add a little bit of color. In addition to what Rena said, I too have had elderly relatives who had to stop and just block the traffic because we couldn't get out there. We also have trouble pulling out from the garage right there because there's cars parked across. But a little bit of history. When I've lived in the building 20 years, and when I first moved in, there were actually large TV vans that would be parking either double parked or in those press spots. There's not so many large TV vans anymore. They all have NYP license plates. They might be small vehicles or big vehicles. And so maybe that's a bit of a change. And also, I don't know about the regulations like you guys do, but there is a nice, row there where there are parking spots. So I don't know if making it no standing, for everybody is the right decision versus just making it not NYP parking and making it parking for the public. There's about I think there's actually one spot towards the east end of that strip that you were talking about where there's one public parking spot, literally one. So I don't know what the best solution is, but it's definitely a problem, and we really appreciate you guys taking it up. And I see police stopping there, just parking the police cars there. They don't ticket anyone. The last point information I want to mention is at one point I was told if someone's in the double parked vehicle, they're actually allowed to double park. And I've talked to them sometimes to have them move, and sometimes there is someone in the vehicle. Most of the time there is not someone in the vehicle. So just a little bit of background, and thanks again.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. And let's go to the board members now. We have I'm seeing members of the public, unless you do, Will. Okay. So Sebastian, can we unmute Sebastian?
Thank you, Chuck. I'd like to move that we propose to change the whole area that is currently New York Press only to a no standing zone and ask Fox 5 to come speak to the board if they would like anything to be, if they don't want that to happen.
Okay, is there a second to that? Okay. Yes. Let's see, it's gonna show seconds. Good. Thank you. Todd Stein. Todd? Any Todd?
Yeah, I live across the street, so I was just gonna put my thoughts in. I live on 68th and 2nd my entire life. That was the bus stop that I went to high school. So because of the bus and the double parked cars, it's almost as I can't imagine living in that building or anybody trying to get out of a taxi, Uber. It's impossible. I do park on the street. There is one spot at the very end after the kids' new gym in front of 254, but I don't think it's a good idea to do the all no standing unless they come in, because I think there was some good value said about why no standing isn't the best idea. But it is a problem, and it hasn't changed since, you guys have brought it up.
Thank you, Tom. I see someone who, with the name Rena Lips, but it doesn't look like Rena. Would you like to comment? I assume you're related to Rena.
My name is Robert Lips, Rena's husband.
Mm-hmm.
I agree, and I too live at 220. Shocker. So, something that we're not, in all honesty, you're not going to stop the double parking as much as we all want to. It's Fox 5. They're going to do what they want. They'll take as many tickets as they want. What if, just trying to think outside the box a little bit, it's a pretty wide sidewalk on the north side in front of Fox 5. Honestly, what if you converted the sidewalk, half the sidewalk in front of Fox 5 to a parking lane? So you give them a parking lane, which takes up half the sidewalk, and then their double park would be where they're parked today.
Well, you know, Robert, that's something that I don't think the Department of Transportation would really agree to. We have Colleen here, and it's sidewalk space is something that's
But,
Yeah.
but it's just not going to stop them.
It's,
Well-
you know,
You guys do, and I appreciate your efforts. So thank you.
Yeah, we
I'll
wouldn't-
address it further. Go ahead, Colleen.
yeah, it's true what you said, Chuck. We would not, be too keen on doing that. I mean, I think the issue here is enforcement. And let me confirm how many spaces we gave Fox, because it could be that maybe they're utilizing more space than they're supposed to. So I'd like to confirm that first, and then I can let the community board know before any drastic measures are taken.
Okay, Robert, just to comment on that, we actually did have the situation, get pretty bad quite a few years ago, and we had a gentleman who was after us to do something about it, and we did. We actually moved some things around. We took away some other parking spaces that they had across the street on 67th Street and put them somewhere else. And we got commitments that they would police the area, and it did improve. And I know Colleen talks about enforcement, and we talk about that a lot, but it's been my experience, having been on committee for quite a while, that enforcement is not a great tool, because to the extent that the police do enforce, they don't always do that, particularly for these traffic kinds of things. And traffic enforcement is they have a limited number of people, frankly, in our whole area. And when we talked to them, the last time we talked to them, they had like 4 traffic enforcement people for the whole community board area, and which covers 59th to 96th Street. And so I've always felt the best way to do it is to use our authority to do something about the parking spaces and to make sure you get the kinds of commitments that you can monitor. And it's been, it's been effective in certain ways, and nothing is perfect. And but I think we ought to get Fox 5's attention. And I know Colleen is suggesting that we could obviously put it off if we wanted till the next meeting. That probably can get that, but I'll leave that to the committee. Let me talk. Let's go to Lori. Did you want to talk? You have your hand raised. Go ahead, Lori. Did you get a prompt? You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, she has her camera off, so she may have stepped away. She just lowered her hand, so nope. Oh, there she is.
She's moving around.
You have the prompt on your.
I'm sorry.
You're on, Lori. Good.
Am I on now?
Yeah, you're on.
Okay, I'm sorry. My dog here is messing with my.
Uh-oh.
Sorry about that. Okay, yes, I just want everyone and including Colleen to be aware of this fact. I used to work many years ago at network radio, and the press plates to private vehicles were given out as a reward for the job. It had nothing to do with people's need to have a press plate. So this is a television station. So when they have to go out on a job, they take the van. So the van, I assume, has press plates, which is fine. But all the other people who have press plates are private individuals and do not need to be parking and disrupting the public bus, et cetera, all the time. So that's all I wanted to say. I also wanted to cede my time to my dear friend Russ Novak, who lives on the block and is trying to raise his hand and can't seem to be able to do that. Do you see he's on the call? He's on.
I see Russ. Sure, of course.
Can you just let him talk because he's.
Of course.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, Russ. Yeah, you're right.
Hi.
You're on. We can hear
Thank you. Can you guys hear me? I'm actually
We
sitting in
hear
my
you.
car in the garage at 201 East 67th
Oh,
Street.
you're in a car in the garage. You can't get out.
Yeah, I just was stuck in traffic driving my wife home from Battery Park.
Oh, sorry.
But first things first, I'd just like to thank the committee for taking some action to deal with this problem. And to echo Lori's point with the NYP plates, there is a tremendous amount of abuse of those plates and of the use of bogus placards on the cars that are double parked and also parked in the spots in the parking zones designated for NYP plates. You have people with all sorts of handmade signs supposedly authorizing them to park there. You have people with hang tags from their rear view mirrors saying essential employee, which is a leftover from the COVID days, which no longer exist, which frankly is an insult to every sort of nurse, doctor, emergency response person, and so forth. They're all using those things as an excuse to avoid sanctions when they double park. You have people with handwritten signs saying, I'm working here, here's my phone number. That's why I'm double parked here. And over the weekend, I saw someone with a New York State court clerk placard double parked there, which I don't know why they're up there on the weekend. I don't know what business a state court clerk has double parking in front of Fox. So, and also to Lori's point, there are many private cars without any sort of press plate or otherwise, just double parking there for the length of the workday. These, I don't know what these folks are doing. I don't know if they're talent. I don't know if they're back office. I don't know if they're HR people. I don't know if they're accountants or whatever they are. But they double park there for the length of the block, basically between 6 in the morning and 7, 8 at night. And with impunity, and no one's doing anything, no one's monitoring it, no one's doing anything to alleviate it, and so forth. So really, I mean, if you come on the weekend, there's a lot less cars there simply because there's a lot less 9 to 5 Monday through Friday employees that are working on the weekend. These are not the people who are doing the double parking and parking in the press spots are not reporters or technicians or camera people going out and covering a story. Let's say, there's a fire somewhere, in the Lower East Side. That's what these press plates are for. They're for the news gathering vans and other sorts of things to attend to the news and deliver the news. They're not there for back office people to double park and take and to double park and abuse the privilege. I mean, this is really, I don't know what city agency issues these things or if it's a state agency or whoever it is, but this is a real abusive situation that's been going on for at least, and I've been in the building since 1995, at least since I've been there. I mean, I've been to a lot of these community board meetings. We've all sort of grown old together with this issue, and it's sadly it's just not resolved. And I think the community board's on the right track when they say that they need what's needed is a coordinated response. I think Fox needs to be made aware that they're disrupting the quality of life in a neighborhood. I think the New York City Police Department needs to be aware that they're having zero enforcement. Department of Transportation needs to be aware that the parking privileges and parking rules and regulations are being flaunted and not enforced. And just one other thing, this is the worst it's ever been since I've been living on this block, and it's gotten so bad that the length of Fox cars that are parked on the block go practically to the corner of 3rd Avenue, which do two really bad and unsafe things. They're blocking the access to the fire hydrants that's there in front of I guess it's like 201 where the gyms are, and it's also blocking the bus stop for the Cross Avenue for the 6 for the crosstown bus. They can't stop. They're blocking traffic. It's really an impossible, deteriorating situation, and I really support and commend this community board for taking action on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon Pope Marshall, I believe, on the board is next. Can we unmute Sharon? Go ahead, Sharon. We can hear you.
Yes, thank you, Chuck.
I guess I'm looking for some clarification. I wanted to ask you a question, Chuck. I fully agree that this has been a problem now for at least 15 years, if not 20 or more, with that particular block. Now, there does seem to be a general consensus that the issue is with enforcement. And, you know, I understand that there may not be some consistency with enforcement. I guess what I'm looking for is some clarification as to how does a no parking sign impact the amount of double parking? And I was listening to you, Chuck, when you mentioned that there has been some success with this strategy in the past. And I was wondering if you would not mind elaborating just a bit as to why it works.
Well, what happened was when we said, you know, we went around and we changed a lot of the parking regulations. They came before us, and they then said, listen, here's what we'll do. We're going to police the area better. We're going to make sure that the people who are supposed to be park there, and not, you know, not others. And things got better for a while. And that's, so I think you can get some action from them. And if we get some action and they come and they say, this is what we're prepared to do, and we can then police it. And, you know, Michelle we did the same thing we did the thing with Fairway when they've been very cooperative since that happened. You know, Fox 5 may not be as cooperative, but in the past they have. In the past they've come and they've said, okay, you know, we're willing to police this, and that's the only way you're going to really get something accomplished, because I think the police enforcement is just tricky to do. They may enforce for a while, even if you get them to do that, but then after a while it drops off. So it's and so that I never view that as a real solution to most of these problems, frankly. My goodness. Michelle, you want to comment?
Thank you. I'd like to call the question on the resolution.
Okay. Why don't you want to call the roll, Craig?
Yes. Okay, I'm just making sure that it's the same. Okay, so it should be myself, Chuck, John McClement, Lori, Michelle, Paul, Rita, Sebastian, Sharon, Stephanie, TJ.
Okay. All right. So if you're in favor of this, you don't have to do anything. If you want to vote no or abstain or not voting for cause, you should raise your hand. Anybody? Any hands raised? I don't see anyone. You see anything?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. So that passes. And Colleen, if you can get the numbers, we'll fill it in before we get to, you know, before we get the minutes in.
Will do.
Thanks. Okay. All right. The next item on our agenda is an open street application, DOT application for the Birch Waffen Lennox School located on East 77th Street from 2nd to 3rd Avenue, and they want it from 9, I think it's 9 to 2, isn't it? That they want to, when they call it open streets, they want to close the streets. And I don't know if there's anyone here who wants to, yes, okay. Let's see, Astrid Reed. Would you like to comment on this? Yes, why don't we unmute Astrid? Welcome. No.
Astrid, you have to look for a prompt on your device asking you to confirm unmuting.
Yes.
There you
Okay,
go.
now you're on.
Well, thank you. Good evening, everyone. And thank you for the opportunity to speak before you at this hearing today. My name is Astrid Reich, and I serve as the Chief of Staff to the headmaster at the Birch Waffen Lennox School. Well, basically, we were very delighted to receive approval for our application at the end of last month. We submitted the application on September 20th. And the reason why we are so, we were really attracted to apply for the Open Suite application is because we wanted our children to take advantage of the fresh air and be able to, to play together. So now actually we have an open rooftop recess, and only one grade can play at all time. It's so small that they cannot accommodate more than one grade. So now that we have, we asked for the street closure from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. on the weekdays, the students will be able to play together and mingle. And so that's the reason why we're so excited about being approved for this, the Open Suite application. We spoke with businesses on the block. We spoke with our neighbors or residents. They are very excited. Some of them have kids in, in the school, and they know exactly what the problem is. And the fact that, all of them to tell us that they were not able to be here between 5 and 2, and it's okay for us to have this, this closure. And the one who was working from home and the elderly, they are looking forward to, to the street being closed during drop-off and pick-up, because there are a lot of congestion and traffic during this time. And of course, we're going to allow vehicles to remain parked on the street, and deliveries to go and as needed. We're not going to close the street, like for people not be able to to deliver items for groceries or for businesses. So that's the reason why we are so excited about being approved by the Department of Transportation.
Thank you. Anyone from the comment on this? Will, did we receive anything about this application?
Just the attached letter on our agenda.
Okay, well, yes, I saw it. We see there's a Kirby Kersels. I guess would like to speak on this. Can we
Yes, hi, I'm Kirby Kersels. I live at 212, which is right next to the school. And I would like to say how excited I am about this. And I really hope that the board approves this, that it will be great. Kids do deserve fresh air and to be out and about in the weather, in the world. And it will also be exciting for people who live there. And so I'm 110% for it. And yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Michelle? Michelle?
Thanks. Yeah, just a couple of questions. How many students are at Birchwatham?
We have 330 students, but
how much? Sorry?
330 students.
I'm sorry, 230? I did
330.
Oh, 330. Okay, 330. Okay, and how many classes do you have on a grade?
We have from kindergarten to 12 grades, but we're planning on opening a pre-kindergarten class very soon.
But at the moment, there's one class per grade. So like there's a third grade class, a fourth grade class.
Yes.
Okay, so there's one class per grade. Okay, it's a small school and you have a rooftop. Can I ask you, are there any garages on your block or doctor's offices?
No, we don't have any doctor's offices. We have residents, we have businesses. You're gonna have a hospital, but it's gonna be on the 3rd Street, and we're gonna have a residential building on the 2nd Street, but we don't have any doctors on our block.
You mean the hospital building will be on 3rd Avenue?
3rd Avenue, yeah.
It's not built yet?
No.
Okay. And you said you wanted the closure from 9 until 2, but you also want a closure at drop off and pickup. Isn't pickup past 2 o'clock?
Yes, pick up around 2 o'clock for the lower school students, because middle school students and seniors, they go home alone, so it's fine.
So 2 o'clock is the last pickup from your school?
Yes, 2 to 10, yes.
Uh-huh. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you,
Sharon, did you want to say something, Sharon? Comment? Okay. Go ahead, Sharon, yeah.
I'd like to call a question.
Okay, well, someone needs to move to approve, but maybe you want to do that first.
Okay.
Go ahead. Is there a second? Sharon moves to approve. Is there a second?
Thank you, Chuck.
Okay, that's okay. Stephanie Reckler, I guess, was that a second? Okay. Did you want to say anything, Stephanie? You want to mute Stephanie? Sebastian, I guess, second. His thumbs up. So I'm reading the tea leaves here.
Stephanie, you're unmuted if you had something
Did you want to comment, Stephanie?
Yes, it is strange that I'm speaking in favor of the Northwell construction, but there is a hospital on the corner, if I'm not mistaken. And I think this is a terrible idea to close the street to traffic because patients need to get to the hospital. So how do you envision the patients being dropped off?
Well, the hospital is being built. It's not, it's not finished yet. But what we're going to do, we're going to close the portion of the street to allow our lower school students to play. Let's say around 11 to 12:30 every day. We're going to do like other schools in the neighborhood, like the Allen Stevenson School. We're not going to close it all the time. We're just going to close it for a portion of the time, especially to let our students play during recess. And I'm sure that if there is some ambulance, I'm sure that they're going to park in front of on 3rd Street. That's where the entrance of the hospital is going to be, and not on the 77th Street. So we're going to have plenty. The block will be closed for students, and I don't think it's going to be any problem for the hospital. It's not built yet.
Hey, so it's Colleen from DOT, if I can interject a little bit. So under the Open Street program, emergency response vehicles will always have access on that street. The staffers of that school are responsible for making sure that the students are safe, so that the emergency response vehicles can go through. And I just want to add that we did get a positive feedback from Councilmember Menin's office, who doesn't see any issues with the open street.
For your information, Alan Stevenson only is closed for school drop. The street on 78th Street is only closed now for drop off and pickup. It isn't closed during the day for the children to play.
Well, that's because Alan Stevenson just modified theirs. They did have an open street in the past, and it was a full closure.
And there was an issue. There was an issue about doctors. That's why Michelle was raising.
Yeah,
that was a big issue. It was a different situation than this.
Well, I think this is a very bad idea, and I will not vote for it.
Okay. Their opinion, obviously. Yes. Colleen, did you want to further comment or just have your hand? Sharon, did you still have your hand up? Sharon, when you want to comment? You're not going to show.
I was hoping to call a question, Chuck, if you think it's appropriate at this time.
Michelle want to make a comment. Go ahead, Michelle. Let her make a comment in the call.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chuck and Sharon. I wanted to point out that that's the entrance street for Lenox Hill. And Lenox Hill Emergency Room is on 77th between Lex and Park. And the ambulances, drop-off vehicles, accessorides, whatever, that's an access street. That's not a street that should be closed. This is a very small school. They have a rooftop. It's really incumbent upon them to plan their day so that they can get their younger kids outside. They don't need their high school outside playing. So they're talking about younger children, grades 1 to 6 or kindergarten through 6. They have a rooftop. Let them stagger the time, 20 minutes for each class, whatever it is. But to close that street, which is the whole access street to the main entrance and the emergency room of Lenox Hill, is a terrible idea.
Why don't you, Ms. Fritz, go ahead. Comment on that. You can talk. Your mic's open.
Okay, it's me. Can I talk?
Yes.
Yeah, so Lennox School is between Lexington and Park. We are between Second and
I
Third
know.
Street.
Oh, I
Yeah.
understand, but it's a through street. The ambulances don't necessarily come down Lexington to make a right turn onto 77th. They can be coming across from First Avenue, from York Avenue. There are other medical facilities along there. It's a heavily residential area. There are emergency facilities. That hospital, the emergency room and everything services that whole area. To me, it's not a priority. The hospital is the priority. And it's not a priority, especially when you have a rooftop play area, so your kids have access to outdoors during the day. But I have to tell you, even if they didn't, this is not a priority for that neighborhood. I'm sorry.
Well, we saw it as a priority, if I may. We saw it as a priority because, like I said, this is a very small, space. We cannot like allow more than one grade, to play at all time. And,
That's all right.
middle school, yeah, but middle school students cannot play really there because they are bigger than first grade and second grade. And I think the ambulances usually they enter, 77th Street, like from Third Avenue.
No,
Not
that's only if they're
taking
going uptown. What about if they're coming downtown? You don't really know the pathways of an ambulance. When an ambulance picks up a patient, they take the shortest route. You really can't be the determinant of which way they go. Of
But
course,
Allen
they cross the
Stevenson,
whole
I
width.
understand,
They come
Michelle,
off
but
the
Allen
drive.
Stevenson is on the 778th Street. It's, it's very close to the 77th Street. But, Allen Stevenson got permission to open up, to close the street. And, they are in Lexington and between Lexington and Park. We are on between Second and Third Avenue, and we asked for.
It's a through street, and I wasn't in favor of that one either.
Okay, I don't want
They
to
did it.
have a back and forth. That's not a good idea. Let's go to Colleen. She may be able to shed some light on this because the department has looked at
Hey,
it. Sure.
hey, Astrid, I mean, you're there every day. How often is the ambulance traveling on that street?
Not often at all. It's a very
Okay.
quiet street. We have
Okay.
like, some residents parking and the
Right.
parents dropping up and picking up their kids. They are not a lot
Okay.
of kids at all.
Okay, as I mentioned, we have worked with many schools and have open streets citywide. There hasn't been any problems. Emergency response vehicles always have access to open streets. Okay. And it is the school's responsibility, their staffers, to manage that should an ambulance need to come through that street. Okay. They are the responsible parties to, move the children aside, and so forth and so forth. So we have not had any problem with the school administering an open street. So I don't see an issue with this.
Okay. Why don't let's read it before I get to Sharon. Rita, did you want to say something, Rita?
No, I'd like to call the question.
Does anybody want to discuss this? Sharon, do you want to let Sharon get the comment and then we'll call the question? Go ahead, Sharon.
No, I called the question
Oh,
earlier.
that's right. You called the
So
question.
I just wanted to bring it up again.
Okay. Questions, we'll call the question. Give us want to go through the vote total, the vote count, I mean?
Yeah, yes, it should be the same. Myself, Chuck, John McClement, Lori, Michelle, Paul, Rita, Sebastian, Sharon, Stephanie, TJ.
Okay. So if you're in favor of this, you don't have to do anything. If you want to vote no, abstain, we're not voting for cause, raise your hand. Okay, Michelle?
No.
Okay. Is there anyone else? I know Stephanie is she not here? Stephanie, are you here? I see her. She doesn't have her face. Maybe she's not here. Okay. All right.
No.
No, Stephanie's a no. Okay. We got that. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. And thank you. Okay. Next is a discussion regarding concerns about hot bus stops and the need for additional bus shelters. And I'm glad Colleen is here for this. And I know they have contracts for bus shelters, but that's been that is an issue, I think, in our district. There are many seniors who use buses, and and like the idea of not having to stand out in the sun because buses don't always come that quickly. And I don't know, Colleen, can you give us some information about the bus shelter program and where things stand?
Sure. So as many of you know, the city works with the contractor JC Deco, and JC Deco has been installing bus shelters citywide. And they have been reaching out to property owners, letting them know if a shelter is coming in front of their building or residential buildings and so forth and so forth. If there are any issues, you know, we work very closely with the businesses or the buildings, for that matter, just to clarify the size of the shelter and where the shelter is going to be installed. For example, what we've encountered is that a building may not want a shelter in front of their establishment because they might have an awning, or they just don't want the aesthetic. They have issues with the aesthetic of the shelter. And we have been working a lot with property owners and businesses when it comes to the bus shelters. Bus shelters, as you know, it's an important amenity, and it serves the greater ridership, which has increased. It provides a valuable service for those who are waiting in the sun, waiting in the snow to go to their destination. And we are continuing to install shelters. And if the community board knows of any locations where they would like to have a shelter, we'll be more than happy to visit the site to do a feasibility study.
Okay, and if we have some locations and you do a feasibility study, there's no impediment to getting a shelter installed then at that point? If your feasibility study checks out.
If our feasibility study checks out and the locations are fine, we will inform the community board. Correct, Chuck.
Thank you. Thank you. Paul, quickly, do you want to comment on this, Paul? We can unmute Paul. Okay.
Good chat. Yes, I would love to comment on this. So I saw an article on this very same subject in Patch in August, which I sent to both of you. And it was quite remarkable, actually. It's an article about a study done by NASA, who were looking at our streets all the way from space with thermal imaging. And it turns out the Upper East Side has some of the worst hotspots, or on average worse than the rest of the city. And in fact, the map that they had in the article and the text talks about anything between Lex and York on the major cross streets as being the worst ones, 72nd, 79th, 86, 96. I think we should have bus shelters everywhere. I think a great reason is for having shade during the hot weather. It's awful standing, someone's waiting 10, 15 minutes at a bus stop in the beating heat. It's just terrible. You can make it 10 or 20 degrees less hot for someone by providing shade. Trees would be great, but bus shelters are a great second best as well. So I'm hugely in favor of more of these in our neighborhood.
And I'll just add, the New York Times actually had an article on this. It was published on August 12th, which is where I was made aware of it. It was part of their Street Wars series, which if anyone is interested, it was really a wonderful series that they recently wrapped up that talks about a lot of the issues that are a lot of what we discuss here at our committee meetings. And I took a look to see the extent to which we do have bus stops in our community here. And let me just provide a little context as far as the findings. So in terms of our crosstown routes, the M66 route basically is devoid of bus shelters all along it. There are numerous bus stops along the M72 route, the M79 route, the M86 route, and the M96 routes that are exposed with no shelters. And it's particularly an issue on the in the westbound direction, because those are the ones that are most likely to be exposed to the sun. And yes, shelters obviously provide protection from rainy weather as well, but in terms of the danger of heat, especially with global warming that's taken place and the urban heat island effect that we see here, it's really those westbound direction stops that are most problematic. Then on the avenues, and the avenues you can have exposure on both sides potentially, just because of the sun angle. And it varies by street, and as I'm sure most people are aware of here, there are no bus shelters on the routes that serve Madison and Fifth Avenues, and there's been some discussion about bus shelters being added to Madison Avenue. That's been controversial. We've discussed that here. There are also no bus shelters on Lexington Avenue as well, which I assume is a function of the sidewalk being more narrow there, though there are designs that do accommodate those more narrow streets and narrower sidewalks. The routes that Third Avenue does have some bus shelters in place, but the majority of the bus stops in our district on Third Avenue do not have shelters. And I'd say about half of the stops along First and Second Avenues have shelters as well. Along York Avenue, there are more shelters than on First, Second, and Third, serving the M31, but there are still numerous blocks, especially in the southbound direction where many of the boardings are taking place, that don't have shelters, including 91st Street, 86th, 74th, 64th, and 62nd, and yeah, and that's it. So there are really a significant number of bus stops that do not have shelters in our community, and whether we want to perhaps make a blanket statement or look at individual locations, I leave that to everyone as we have this discussion.
Yeah, I think you may want to make some recommendations just to DOT that they look at like the cross streets, as Paul was saying, all the big cross streets and some other areas that you've indicated, Craig. Michelle?
If I can just say something, Chuck, before Michelle,
Sure.
we're more than happy to work very closely with the community board to identify best locations for additional shelters, that will serve the community and the riding public. So do let us know of locations that you want us to look at.
Well, I actually have a question on that, Colleen. Is there any type of public forum in which, or could that be something that we do as a topic at a upcoming meeting of this committee, where we allow people to make suggestions and speak to why any specific location has a particular need?
I mean, I think what can happen is that if folks have locations, they can put that on our website. I think there is, if you go on our website, there is a portal that would probably allow you to put in those locations, kind of similar to a city bike rack. But I can confirm that tomorrow with my colleagues in the franchise division.
Michelle? Michelle, please.
Yeah, first let me point out, this is a very big advertising revenue source. So, the contractor and the city would be very anxious to install these wherever they can, because they can then sell the advertising on them. And that's one of the very big objections at Madison Avenue, that these will block storefronts and have their own advertising. But put that aside. I'll make a comment about Lexington. Aside from it being narrow sidewalks, it's also the entire subway grading up and down Lexington on both sides of Lexington. So that's not an appropriate place to put a bus shelter. The third thing is, are there any criteria for this that the DOT has, rather than the public making a request or a suggestion for one, and then you coming back, Colleen, the DOT coming back and telling us whether or not it's feasible? Does the DOT itself have any criteria for what they need to have, like the width of the street, clearance that they have to have, how far from a hydrant, how far from a corner, because it may block visibility, a bunch of stuff like that? Is there anything out there that you have? And then I have a second question. Maybe Colleen stepped away.
No, I'm here. I'm here. I was muted. There are criterias for bus shelter siting. And first of all, they're available in 5 sizes. They're regular, narrow, short, little, and double. And the criteria depend on the size that is selected. One of the criteria is that there needs to be a clear path. With few exceptions, shelter must allow a minimum clear path of 7 feet in width. And then there's clearance from the curb. All shelters must allow a straight, unobstructed path of at least 3 feet between shelter and the curb. Other minimum distances are like 10 feet from a fire hydrant or standpipe, 5 feet from the tree trunks, canopies, tree pits, or cellar doors, 3 feet from street lights or traffic signal poles, and 2 feet from ventilation grates and street signs. So there are criteria for the shelters.
We should probably have that. The other thing is, what is it that you're asking of us today? I for one would not like to have a blanket statement about our feelings about bus shelters. I would rather that if they are proposed, that we treat them and we can ask all these questions and that we vote on them as they come to us, rather than some blanket resolution of whether we're for them or against them, because that's way too broad. You're not taking any location into consideration, size, the needs of the surrounding businesses or anything like that. So I would not like to see a resolution on that tonight, but we have no control if the DOT has a program where these can be proposed, then that's the DOT's program, and then they can be proposed. And then I would just ask that you come to us so that with a presentation and criteria and whoever is proposing it, and then we make a decision on each individual item. So in general, was this just informative, or what are you looking for from us today?
Well,
Or is that okay with you?
What I think first of all, we want to have a discussion, Michelle, but secondly, there may be recommendations that we could make. I mean,
well, but you haven't had any posting. It seems to me that if any recommendations then you have to post it, and then the discussion takes place.
No.
No?
These are discussion. These are recommendations to go out and study. You don't know that you're going to get, if it comes to the point where they say it's feasible, as Colleen said, she'll come back and then we'll have a whole hearing about that particular.
Oh, I see. You don't mean a vote on them. You mean that somebody might just throw out an address.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as there's a posting and a hearing.
Right. We'll have that when they come back and say, yes, it's feasible to put it here, there, whatever.
Yeah, and Michelle, sometimes we would get requests from a resident asking us to look at a particular location to determine if a shelter is feasible. And if that's the case and it is feasible, of course, we'll come to the community board and let the community board know, or the businesses in the vicinity.
Right. You want to hear from the businesses. You want to hear from them.
Yes.
Before you do take any.
Before we install, yes.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
So there need not be a resolution on anything today.
Yeah, right. That's correct. Unless somebody wants to make one. I mean,
but I mean, on what?
People. Well, that's, but we weren't necessarily anticipating a resolution.
Right.
Is that all right, Craig, with you at this point?
Yeah, I didn't know that this was going to result in a resolution. I think it was the beginning of a discussion to develop a
good. That's fine.
Strategy to addressing this issue, bringing it to light. I just asked Will, I'm not sure if he sent it, if he put it in the chat yet, but I found the DOT bus stop shelter street design manual, which gives a lot of the parameters that Colleen had just mentioned. So he just posted it, so now everyone has a chance to look at it. I don't believe there is anywhere on the DOT website that allows you to make the request. They send you directly to 311, which of course does result in it being sent to DOT, but it is a little more arduous than filling out a form on the DOT website.
Well, people will we can get some requests into DOT to get them to start looking. So, okay.
And if anyone has any requests, they could also just share them with the board office, and we could
Right.
we can bring them to light as well.
Next on our agenda is updates from DOT, and Colleen.
That's a great segue. So I have good news, and the good news is that we would like to come to the community board in December to discuss the York Avenue study. And
York
yes,
Avenue study. This is like
yes, the York Avenue study. So it's what we have. We don't have anything finalized. We're just coming to give a preliminary presentation in terms of trying to get or solicit feedback from the community board of what we should be looking at. We don't want to, do an analysis and then we come to the community board and the community board will say, hey, you did not look at this particular location, or hey, you missed that intersection. So my colleague, Greg Haas, and I will come to the December meeting, and Greg will, discuss, the expectations and what we're planning to lay out and what we're looking for. And I will work with Will to get that on the agenda. And that's what I wanted to share with the community board.
Okay, I just wanted to say that the last time that the DOT came before us with just some perspective proposals, it didn't work out well, and they never returned for about 25 years. So.
Well, we'll make sure this one works out well. We're
a little better than that.
Yeah, and then after we give the presentation to the community board, I think what we're looking to do is to have a walkthrough. We'd like to do another walkthrough of the area with the CB and with a few of the residents and electeds. I think that's the position we wanted to take and engage the community.
Yeah, and I think that would be really great, because the day of the last walkthrough was one of those rare days where it was the
There was
afternoon.
no traffic.
Right, there was no traffic. York Avenue was flowing well. Maybe we can discuss based on the findings of based on the discussion next meeting, the hours of the day in which are highlighting when the issues are most prevalent.
Yeah. The irony of that is that when we went out there was no issues that day, which was kind of weird.
I could tell you, having walked down that corridor for numerous days about a month ago to visit family at the hospital, there were definitely some issues along there. So we just got lucky or unlucky.
Yeah. So we'll come in December. All right.
Colleen, if you could stay around, I think there may be questions for you.
I will stay around.
Just first, you shouldn't be long. And let me take some members of Leah is on, so let's hear from Leah first. Go ahead, unmute Leah.
Yes, hi, thank you. Question about the dining sheds, the old ones. I thought that the grace period had ended and they were supposed to be down at the beginning of November. And many of them have been taken down, but not all. So could you remind us of the status?
Sure. So with the outdoor dining, the restaurants had until August 3rd to apply to the new program. And when they apply, they had November 1st to be in compliance. Now, those that did not apply, right, they had until August 1st to be in compliance. And if they are in compliance, they could use the structure until the end of November. Now, those that did not apply, right, their structure have to be removed by November, right? Bottom line is all of the structures have to be removed by November, at the end of November.
November 30th.
Okay, great.
Yeah, November 30th, correct.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yes, and we have our inspectors who are working diligently, going to all of these sites, issuing summonses to the restaurant owners, letting them know that they have to remove their structures by November 30th.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve.
Mhm.
Mary Chan is next, I believe, and then we more. Go ahead, Mary.
Okay, hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, my question is, who takes care of cleaning the subways?
That's the MTA.
Oh, that's the MTA sanitation, correct?
It's MTA.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I just wanted to know if it was part of DOT.
No.
Okay, so
Have you
I'll reach
noticed
out
dirt
to
in-
them.
Have you
Thank
noticed
you.
some dirt in the subways recently?
Have I what?
Have you noticed dirt in the subways recently?
Well, I hate to say it, but they have piss corners.
You don't have to
Um,
have to answer. That's just kidding.
it hasn't been cleaned. You could tell it hasn't been
Right.
cleaned.
Right.
And the Second Avenue subway, when they have those new ceiling lights, the high ones when you go down the escalators, I don't think they have ever been cleaned because they look pretty gray, and
Probably
you could see, so I was just trying to reach out,
Yeah,
about
it's the MTA.
Okay, I'll reach out to them. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thanks. Michelle,
Okay.
you have a question for
Yeah, I
Colleen?
want to make a comment and then I have a follow-up with Colleen. In terms of the York Avenue study, one of the reasons some of us were around for that the whole thing fell apart is because my recollection is they came to us with a conclusion that they were studying. And that was the big argument. And I hope that this study, Colleen, is a study from which solutions will spring, not somebody coming up with the idea of a solution, such as making the big controversy was making it one way or changing the exits, and then have the solution first and then go ahead and study it, because that you get faulty data with that because a presumption was made and you're studying the presumption. So I just hope that any study that's happening is actually a study and that there's no preconceived solution, but that the solution comes out of the stats and the result of the study. So I hope that's the case.
That's a great point you're raising. I mean, we're not coming with anything preconceived, just so you know that. We're coming there with the intention of getting a lot of feedback from the community but we want the community to tell us what the problem is. And we want to work with the community to find solutions to fix the problem. That's what it is.
Okay, well, I thought we've been doing that as a matter of course in this committee forever. But I thought study, and I always shudder to use that word because I know what it entails once you call something a study. With government, it's like it sets a whole, ball in motion that can become impossible to decipher. So I know what that word means, but taking suggestions from the community or where the trouble spots are, we do that all the time. To me, when a study was being conducted, it was that there were professionals coming out citing where the trouble spots are because they're observing however many different times of day, and also not people who have preconceived ideas of solution, like everything is solved with a bump out or everything is solved with
Right.
this or you know what I mean? But for the
Yes.
real study that yields data, and then the data points to a solution. So that's what I was really hoping for.
Yeah, and that's what's gonna happen.
Okay, I'm happy with that. Let me just follow up with you. The notorious business on the northwest corner of 89th and 2nd that you've been working on, and they took down that entire structure, and I was so excited. And then they just had a cafe with tables and chairs. They took down that whole expensive thing and they put up another one that's attached to the building.
Yeah, and Michelle, I've reported that to DOB because it's attached to the building.
Yeah.
I've reported it to them. So let me follow up with them.
It was inexplicable to me. I don't, that was a
Yeah.
very, very expensive addition. It was a tongue and groove construction. I watched the construction and they took it all down. I assume because they were ticketed, because you guys are the enforcing agency, Don't you do the tickets? I mean,
No, if it's a structure that's attached to the building, right? That would be under DOB's jurisdiction. They would issue the summons to the property owner.
well, I
of that
assume
building.
they did because they took
Yeah.
this very expensive thing down and now they just built another one.
We issued a summons to them because I think what happened was that they had extended their outdoor dining. And they eventually removed the outdoor dining. And when they did, they created another structure that they attached to the building. That's what they did. Yeah.
Their outdoor dining is in that structure, but that
Mhm.
structure is not outdoors. You know what I mean? It's all
Yeah.
enclosed, roof included. Yeah, so if you can get the DOB to go over there, thank you.
Okay.
Do we have any other business at this point? Anyone wants to raise? Okay, appreciate that. Thanks for everyone's participation, and I believe we are adjourned, and our actions will come before the full board on the 20th, I believe. 2 weeks.